Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your Saturday and a great start to your weekend. Here to bring you the latest information on what's going to happen between now and the next 24 hours. We'll discuss a few things. A lot of snow out there across the interior Northeast, rain across the eastern U.S. where it's not snowing. Pretty quiet across the central U.S. and, a little bit of moisture out there across the western U.S. in the form of rain, higher elevation snow. We'll speak on all that and break it down in great detail, just like we always do. But after we get past that, we'll move into tomorrow, into early next week, because there is a lot of active weather on the way. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of active weather ongoing right now, but what's to come could be definitely a lot more active. We could have a blizzard across areas of the country, a lot of high winds, a severe weather threat that could last a few days. So we need to get detailed with you folks and try to figure out the timeline and everything, and just the details of everything. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. I might miss it. I might not be able to get to it until like Monday, Sunday. If you're a regular, you know that I'm not able to really get to the comments on the weekends. I typically have to catch up on a Monday, but please put those prayer requests in the comments because other people see it besides me. And prayer is powerful. We look out for one another on here. We pray for one another. We're a big family, and that's one of the best things I love about this channel. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. Probably going to be a pretty long video. So a lot of moisture across the eastern U.S. As you can tell here in the blue, that's a lot of snow. We're going to have a significant icing setup that's going to develop really later today into tonight across areas of like Maine, especially even into New Hampshire. A little bit of icing even outside of those states too. That's going to develop in like Western Mass, maybe even a freezing rain you're dealing with this morning across areas of interior sections of New York State. But I think the worst of the icing is really going to be Maine into New Brunswick, which we will talk about you folks also. But everybody else that's not cold enough for snow is just dealing with washout conditions. And like the mid-Atlantic, southern New England, the rain snow line is a few hours north of Boston, I would say, but just a cold, miserable rain you're waking up to this morning in Boston. Raining pretty good out in the Outer Banks, so we do have some storms rumbling through southeast Georgia and eastern South Carolina. We do have some storms down here in the southern tip of Florida where we've been dealing with a tornado threat over the last 24 hours. I think we will still have a marginal tornado threat throughout the morning and the afternoon hours, and it's going to be very active in the Bahamas again, so please be aware if you live out there. I had somebody message me on Facebook saying that they watched the weather reports out in the Bahamas, so that means a lot. Always let me know where you're tuning in from, even if it's outside the U.S., and I know we got a lot of friends up in Atlantic Canada. It always means the world to me when I got people tuning in outside kind of the regular eastern U.S., which I know the majority of my viewers live, but it's always cool knowing there's other people that live outside that area too. But the middle of the country is pretty quiet. We do have some light to moderate snow kind of streaking across the northern plains and the north central U.S. This will deliver some additional snowfall accumulations, and there is some snow falling across northern Montana. But this really gets beefed up, if you will, like really more amplified, a lot more moisture as we start to get into the later half of the next 24 hours. And this will turn into an all-out winter storm. Moisture out west, it's a very warm setup. Once you get deep into the Rockies and the Cascades, most of the cold air is trapped north, northeast, and east of the Rockies. There's not a lot of cold air that you got in the extreme western U.S., so this is a very warm system. You got to get way up there in the Cascades to see any appreciable snowfall. Sierra Nevada will pick up several inches to feet of snow over the next couple of days also. Storm Prediction Center, very small marginal risk for like the Outer Banks and the eastern sections of North Carolina, and then we got a marginal risk down here in the southern tip of Florida. Could be active out there right now as I speak. And then we do have that risk of thunderstorms. From the panhandle of Florida all the way up to southern New England, just south of Boston. We could get a line of storms later this evening. Could be quite gusty, quite intense. I don't think it's going to be damaging by any means, but it's going to be definitely some windy conditions up here throughout the day in southern New England. And we got this just huge, weird-looking area of thunderstorms across the western U.S. and kind of the central high plains region. Could get some thunderstorms out here. Cannot rule it out one bit. And really what's driving this marginal risk, it's just a 2% risk of a tornado. So please take this serious. We had some close calls. I don't know exactly what happened in the Florida Keys last night. Had that tornado watch issued, but definitely looked like some solid water spouts out off the coast of southern Florida. So just, continue to be mindful of the weather out here. Any kind of warnings, marine warnings, tornado warnings, obviously, if you live in that area. So excessive rainfall outlook, a little bit of a threat for flash flooding here in the northern California coastline, extreme southwestern Oregon coastline. Not a big deal, though. Here, it could be a bigger deal, in the slight, northern Delmarva region, all the way up through the entire states of New Jersey, southeastern sections of PA, all the way up into southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Long Island, and areas of Massachusetts, including Boston, has that slight risk of flash flood guidance being met. So that means you got a 15% risk of flash flood guidance exceeding, I think I said that wrong, rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. There you go. So watches, warnings, and advisories. So let me see if we got an update from this, and we do not. So the only thing that I would say is not correct on here, you see you got the teal colors right in here. We actually have winter storm warnings up in this area now. Even some blizzard warnings for the counties bordering the west coast, western shorelines of Lake Superior. I do think we'll have additional blizzard warnings up too. But all these winter weather alerts over here, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, this is for what's going on right now. This is for what's on the way, what's kind of starting to begin in Montana. All right, we got winter storm warnings in the pink, winter storm watches up in the teal, and a lot of this will change by the time we do an evening video tonight, which I should be able to do. I should have time to do that. Winter weather advisories kind of in the armpit of the winter storm watches. We got to watch Iowa. Any kind of tweaks with the track could change things significantly in like northern and northwest Iowa. And guys, I'm telling you, the winds are going to be a big deal here in New Mexico, western Texas, especially as we get into tomorrow more so. High wind warnings in kind of the mustard color, more of the brown shades right here. This is high wind watches. So these could get upgraded to high wind warnings. And just littered winter weather advisories across the Rockies. Winter storm warnings are up in the pink for the Sierra Nevada. So here's kind of another look. As you can tell, there's winter storm warnings up. This is the latest from the actual National Weather Service site. Pivotal Weather site is a little bit behind, but if you look really closely, you got a couple counties up here. Let me know if you live up here in northeast Minnesota. I've had a couple people tell me they view from that area. Blizzard warnings up for 2 counties bordering the western shorelines of Lake Superior. Pretty cool. Well, to me it is, not everybody. But if you live up there, I'm sure that you at least got to have some sort of love for snow, or you wouldn't live up there. I know some people don't have a choice, but anyways, enough of all that. The Southeast today, listen, I thought there was like a 99% chance our soccer games would get canceled this morning. Turns out they're not. Waking up this morning with bright sunshine here in the Carolinas, well, South Carolina, not everybody, and did not rain near as much last night, yesterday evening as, kind of we thought it was going to. Didn't even get a half an inch of rain, but it is raining like crazy up here in Virginia right now, Delmarva region. There's some big-time storms that are actually off the coastline of the Southeast. And, the HRRR model is not doing the best job verifying with these storms. So there's storms moving into extreme southern sections of Florida right now. But Bahamas right in here. Listen, it's going to get quite active later this morning, if it isn't already by the time you're watching this video. This afternoon, you're going to just have multi-clusters of lines of storms that moves in. Just watch out for any marine alerts, kind of water spouts that could move on shore. It could be a scenario like that today. We could have additional convection that forms in eastern North Carolina. Enough ingredients still in the atmosphere in eastern North Carolina to still pose a tornado risk at some gusty winds. So I know it's very hard to see, but there is a line of storms sweeping through the extreme eastern sections of North Carolina to the Outer Banks. Then we do have some additional showers and storms kind of firing off in southeast Georgia and along the coastline of South Carolina. And this will kind of just drift away. Could have some storms that kind of grind up against the northeastern coastline of Florida throughout the afternoon, evening hours. So St. Augustine, Tallahassee, maybe down to Fort Lauderdale, just Space Coast. Just be aware of any storms later this evening if you're out and about in the town. And then all this unsettled weather finally heads on off, and I really think tomorrow will be a nicer day. It'll be a chillier day, but a nicer day. All right, so we have this ongoing winter storm right now across the interior northeast. This thing's packing a punch. All rain from, NYC, all of New Jersey, most of Pennsylvania, if not all. Delmarva region getting a lot of rain this morning. Rain, a very chilly, like mid-30s rain in Boston. Heavy snow falling up here in the interior northeast. We take a look at the radar out of, I think, Portland, Maine. And, it's all snow. But if you look really closely, around Manchester, you got a mixture between ice and snow. You go on up here to like extreme northeastern Massachusetts, a couple hours north of Boston. You're getting reports of freezing rain. Freezing rain, a little bit of sleet being reported, freezing rain being reported here in northern, mixture between freezing rain and sleet in northern sections of Mass. So this freezing rain will eventually, the snow you're getting initially here in the southern and down east areas of Maine, you guys will eventually switch from heavy snow to a mixture of sleet and freezing rain in certain areas. And we'll talk more details on that. And we'll actually show you this now. And we keep on going. This is around lunchtime. Any kind of wintry mix you're getting in northern Mass right now, I think you'll switch to a cold rain. Man, here comes that low just riding right through the Delmarva, probably kicking up some strong winds by midday if it's not already windy now. Some of this rain will try to switch to snow in northern PA. Binghamton could switch to a couple-hour period of snow. Might accumulate, maybe. And this continues. And as you can tell, heck, even like southern New Hampshire, southern Vermont begins to switch to rain. And then you see the pink and the purple right in here. I would say this is more so sleet and freezing rain. But even these areas like the extreme coastal sections of Maine will have an opportunity to switch to just good old-fashioned rain. But man, right at the end of this storm, later this afternoon, this evening, it could really pack a punch. This could be the most intense portion of this storm for southern New England. It's right at the end of it where some very heavy rain, wind-driven rain moves in. Even some rumbles of thunder. But whoever's like on the cold side of this is where you could get that quick 1 to 3 inch per hour rates that begins to fall. And then there's that nasty corridor of ice right here in areas of south central and southeastern areas of Maine. Hopefully you can just switch to rain so you don't have to deal with the ice. But I mean, look at this line of storms. Looks like that begins to sweep through southern New England. This will probably be associated with some gusty winds. And then this really starts to move fully out of the northeast. I mean, really by the time you wake up Sunday morning, a lot of areas could be waking up to sunny conditions. This is kind of one of those really intense storms that abruptly ends. It really does. Doesn't really linger. But snowfall between now and the rest of the storm, the life of the storm, this is additional snow. Some areas in Maine are probably going to get over 2 feet of snow. I really do think I'm going to love to see the actual tallies of this. But we're going to take a closer look at some of these graphics. But there's that corridor of ice. Look at this in the southern half of New Hampshire, and I actually think, yeah, there it is. It wasn't all the way through. Look at this in Maine, guys. I mean, that is a 1/4 to 1/2 inch ice total showing up in some of these areas. So let's just go on and get right to the punch here. It's already snowing in these areas. Some of these areas already picked up several inches of snow. So think of this as the entire duration of the storm. If you've already picked up, say, like 4 inches in Rutland, don't add on an additional 13.7. This is the entire life of the storm, okay? But I'm not going to spit out every single name. St. Jonesbury, 1.5 feet of snow. Stowe, over 1 foot of snow. We get a little bit south, Manchester, 10, 11 inches of snow before it's all said and done. Springfield, a little bit more. You head on down here to Bennington, 4 inches. Brattleboro, 6 to 7 inches. This is northern New York State right in here. And we can, dang, I got to quit leaving these little graphics up here, even though it's not that big of a deal. It is to me. But let's go over to New Hampshire. All right, New Hampshire snowfall. Let's just take a look at the individual state here. I know it's really small. New Hampshire's pretty small, but it's already snowing in these areas right now. I'm not sure what you've already picked up, but before it's all said and done, Concord, 2 to 3 inches of snow. Rochester, 2 to 3 inches of snow. Portsmouth, inch or less. Manchester, about an inch. Plymouth, 6 to 8. Woodstock, 8 to 12. North Conway, 8 to 12. Berlin, 12 to 18. I always say I'm not going to say every single city and always end up doing it anyways. But let's look at the ice totals for New Hampshire. This is not good. And it's really in these kind of isolated, more so micro areas that's favored. But Rochester, 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice. But you got these little areas that, we don't have a town or a community in these red areas. But if you live in this red area, that's a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of ice projected with this. And you're not really dealing with a whole lot of freezing rain right now at the time I'm making this video, but that'll change as you get later into the next 6 hours or so, I would say. You head on up to Maine. This is where you're going to get hit the hardest. Okay, let's see if we can get this right here. Maine, Caribou, 18 to 24. Holton, 18 to 24. Millinocket, 18 to 24. I think that's the first time I tried to pronounce that one. Bangor, 8 to 12 inches of snow. Augusta, I think that's 6 to 8. It's hard to tell. Belfast, 4 to 6. Eastport, 4 inches. Portland, 4 to 6. A lot of this snow down here is what's falling right now. So this is the area I'm concerned about. Even though you'll get the most snow up here, it'll be just heavy, wet snow. Down here, where you got these like 4 to 6 inch snowfall amounts, this is also where you'll deal with the ice. Okay, for example, Skowhegan. I think that's I don't think that's Skowhegan. Yeah, this is all over the place. But Bangor, Maine, for example, a 1/4 inch of ice mixed with maybe 8 to 12 inches of snow. That is a no-go. You don't like to see that. But it's this very thin corridor right here, just off the coastline, that's going to get 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of ice combined with maybe several inches of snow. So that's just a mess, guys. It really is. So how much rain? So a lot of this up here is snow. But you get down here into southern New England, obviously down here, the New Jersey, Delmarva, it's already raining right now. Before it's all said and done, good 2 to 4 inches of rain from the I-95 corridor, not getting snow. But you'll also really pick up some winds later on today. Okay, let's back this up a little bit. And I think the winds aren't going to be too bad, but I do think as you're starting to get into this afternoon, this evening, in southern New England, I think you'll get a period of maybe 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts with a line of maybe embedded storms and all this rain that kind of sweeps through. So be aware of that for sure. So I don't want to leave my folks up here in New Brunswick hanging. I think by the time we get to about midday today, heavy snow begins to move in. The pink is freezing rain. The orange is sleet. So you're dealing what looks like in St. John, like the little bit of freezing rain after starting as a period of snow later on this afternoon was at Fredericton. Heavy snow at first, but then you'll begin to get a wintry mix of freezing rain based off the Euro. And, not to leave my friends out here in, Prince Edward Island. I think you'll start off as snow this evening, but then you'll switch to freezing rain and then rain. I don't think it'll be a substantial winter storm for you guys, but Nova Scotia, you guys all switch to rain because low pressure is basically flying through the Bay region right in here. And just warm nose aloft, warm air to the surface, and it's going to switch all to you to rain. But, Fredericton, got to watch out for a high impact winter storm because you do go from that snow to that nasty freezing rain scenario. If you live up here in the northern half of New Brunswick, you're going to get rocked by a pretty substantial, heavy, wet snowstorm. And then this continues to move. You're all rain down here. And, stays all snow for the northern sections of New Brunswick. And then this heads on out. Snowfall between now and the duration of the storm, relatively speaking, a pretty narrow, broad, it's hard to say. This is just pretty much that skinny corridor. It's not skinny in the grand scheme of things, hundreds of miles wide. But you can tell, this is kind of in general a compact winter storm. It really is. But, I know 30 centimeters, I know y'all go off centimeters, is about a foot of snow if we were judging off in the lower 48. But, I think Fredericton would get maybe 10 to 15 centimeters of snow if I had to guess. You guys will have to correct me on what y'all end up getting, but definitely with some ice. But you start to get up here, a foot and a half of snow is likely in certain sections of New Brunswick. I think if you're in the far northern and northeast western sections of Prince Edward Island, you could get several centimeters of snow, very possible, but you might just get a few. But you go down to the freezing rain totals in millimeters. It's the same thing in Maine, guys. You got this thin corridor of ice, and it looks like it moves right around that Fredericton region, where you're getting 15 to maybe 20 millimeters of ice. Okay, which definitely, when you mix in several inches of snow with that much ice, it's a no-go. It's not good. Glazing of ice everywhere else. So definitely hunker down in that region today. South Central U.S., not a lot to speak on. Today is kind of the quiet before the storm. And even tomorrow won't be very active for everybody, but it will get more active. It's not going to be that windy today. The winds really kick up late tonight after midnight in western Texas, New Mexico, but you kind of keep this going right, get into this evening. You're getting into, later tonight, start to see some moisture in Colorado, and then we take it all the way to tomorrow morning. This is when that low pressure begins to eject off the Rockies, and that is when winds start howling here in southeastern and eastern New Mexico and western Texas. All right, so we'll stop it right here down here in the South Central U.S., and we'll just go on and move on. And we'll talk about those winds in a segment here in a second for the South Central U.S. Today in the North Central U.S., it's pretty quiet. And we're only going to talk about the next 24 hours in the north central U.S. We'll extend it further in a different timestamp in this video. Little bit of snow shower activity, definitely possible. Could pick up a few inches of snow in the central and eastern UP of Michigan, maybe even northern lower Michigan. A little bit of snow shower activity is possible later this evening, drifting through southern North Dakota, areas of South Dakota, and then eventually late this evening, you'll probably get a period of some light, maybe moderate snow that kind of sweeps through the southern half of Minnesota, eventually making it all the way into northeast Iowa, and then all the way into sections of Wisconsin. And it could be still snowing, but as we're waking up tomorrow morning, this is when the first push of significant heavy snow begins to move in. So we begin to see some widespread kind of burst of heavy snow in South Dakota and North Dakota as we're getting into the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. And guys, I'm telling you, could be of a convective element to this. We could have some thunder snow out here, and especially South Dakota, where you're closer to this warm air loft, and then it becomes more widespread. And I think you're waking up tomorrow morning with some moderate to heavy snow moving through the city of Minneapolis, places like that. So just snowfall between now and the next 24 hours. Few to maybe several inches of snow, really more so for the southwestern portion of North Dakota and in northern areas of South Dakota. All right, a couple inches of snow could fall from this little small kind of weakening band that drifts through the rest of South Dakota and then eventually into northern Iowa and then southern Minnesota. Could drop inch and a half, inch and a quarter of snow. Not a whole lot, really at all. All right. It's just what's to come, and we'll speak about that here in a second. So we got this spinning cyclone off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. This will continue to bring rounds of rain, even storms, into the southwest Oregon coastline, and then all of the coastline, central and northern especially, of California. And we'll continue to move this, just scattered rains. Nothing really congealed, nothing wide. Well, it is widespread, but nothing really compact out here. Just kind of rounds of snow if you're in higher elevations, rounds of rain if you're in lower. You know, I think we'll start to see an increase in moisture down here in like San Diego, LA later this evening. Not so much the first half of the day. Could be wrong. But then you're starting to see this widespread snow in the central Rockies, higher elevations. But in Montana, where the cold air is trapped north and east of the Rockies, it's cold enough for snow. You're starting to see snow flying around in Montana. Some snow begins to really fly around in the Dakotas. We've already spoken on that. And then we're starting to make our way into tomorrow where the storm really begins to crank up in this area. This is just sort of the beginning stages of it, though. But you're starting to see the snowfall later today in Montana. It really increases in coverage and intensity later tonight. So this is just between now and the next 24 hours. Heavy snow begins to accumulate here in the Yellowstone National Park. A little bit of snow to Ben-Cordon Mountains. Several inches of snow in the Rockies of Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Sierra Nevada. Certainly going to get feet of snow over the next 24 hours. Several inches of snow even outside these mountain ranges and Montana is possible. But it's really what's to come that's going to be the heaviest snow. If we take a look at temperatures, and we're going to give you a better update on that. We take a look at temperatures. Chilly day across the Ohio Valley is 30s and 40s. Northeast, if you're interior Northeast, you won't get most likely above freezing for the most part if you're way up in there in the interior Northeast. But southern New England, you'll have an opportunity to warm into the 50s as this low pressure rides ahead, brings warm air to the surface, but still chilly conditions. Southeast, 60s and 70s, even where it does show 60s, I think we'll hit some 70s here. South Central U.S., a nice day for Texas, 60s and 70s, not too warm, not too cold at all. Then you get out west. And this really demonstrates what I've been talking about, how the cold air is really just on the eastern side of the Rockies. You notice Rockies are in here, right? Highest mountaintops in Montana, right in here in Idaho. Cold air really, it's almost called like a cold air damming event, right? Like you see in the Carolinas and Virginia, where cold air gets trapped east of the Appalachian Mountains. It's kind of the same deal in Montana. Just a plume of really cold air, really just more so in northern and northeast Montana, and then it's kind of oozing into the Dakotas and Minnesota. Getting right up here into the high plains, all the way up into Wyoming. I mean, 60s for highs, maybe even a 70-degree reading. So, a closer look at these advisories. This is for the winter storm moving in now in Montana. Okay, and then we kind of switch it and look at what's to come. And we still don't have an update from this, But just a reminder that we do have winter storm warnings for many counties right in here with a blizzard warning in these two counties right here, which I'm not sure what the name of those two counties are, but there's blizzard warnings right in here. But this is just a closer look. No winter storm warning yet for Minneapolis. And I don't think we've had an upgrade as of right now to winter storm warnings in the Dakotas, but I'm sure that'll change by the time I get into this evening and make a video. But this is what's going on right now. So let's talk about the northern plains. We'll include most of Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas in this. So as we get into tonight, this is after, well, it's around midnight tonight in the northern plains time. Okay, we're starting to move. We already got snow flying around. Snow's starting to pick up in intensity in here. Could have a corridor of some ice in northern Nebraska, southern South Dakota. We continue to make our way until about midday tomorrow. You're starting to get some heavy snow showing up here in areas of Montana, eastern Montana, southern North Dakota, all throughout South Dakota. Some wintry mix really close to this initial low. And then we have a bigger low pressure that ejects off the Rockies here. One low pressure here, one surface low here. Heavy snow off this one flying around in the Dakotas. More so light snow in Montana, with the heaviest starting to move out into the Dakotas. Look at this heavy snow and moving into Minnesota. We'll talk more about Minnesota in the next graphic here in a second. But I do want to mention western Minnesota because it does cut it off in the next graphic too. But western Minnesota getting a lot of snow as we're getting into tomorrow evening. And I do think the rain will switch to snow in like Denver. We'll get a period of snow in like even eastern Colorado. We start to see some snow even as far south as like northwestern Kansas. I do think we're going to get a pretty appreciable winter storm, even in areas in Nebraska too. But there's going to be a warm nose that's really going to ooze itself right into eastern Nebraska, southeastern South Dakota. So if you're a snow fan, you live in here, it's kind of feast or famine. If you're north of that rain snow line, you're probably going to get the most snow out of anybody. If you're south of it, you're going to be chilling in like just a cold rain. So it's going to be a tough call right in that area. But this continues to move in and then move out. By the time we get into Monday afternoon, still heavily snowing in the eastern Dakotas and even into Nebraska. And then this cranks up again and really begins to kind of move more polar and eventually move kind of more south to north throughout Minnesota and just crank up even more snow. Then we can have more snow across the Rockies. So if we continue to move this into the upper Midwest and the rest of Minnesota, including Minneapolis, I think as we are getting into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, this is when northern Iowa and especially Wisconsin, this area of Wisconsin here, and even the extreme western UP of Michigan, this is when you'll have the opportunity to get the most snow from this event. I really do. And I think it's just because the low pressure is going to move into an unfavorable position for you guys to stay all snow. But a heavy front end thumping of snow, even from Minneapolis tomorrow evening. I mean, it's going to be snowing very heavily. Big fat snowflakes most likely with this kind of warm air intrusion moving in, kind of a warm nose. It's going to saturate the column in Minneapolis. So, it's going to be just snowing like crazy before you do eventually, I think, switch to rain. Same thing for northern Wisconsin, central western UP of Michigan. You get kind of a lake-enhanced kind of element off the Lake Superior region here, the western sections of Lake Superior in northeastern Minnesota. And this will aid in more enhanced snowfall and just gusty winds. And then, as you can tell, we're starting to get into Monday morning, that rain snow line creeping up to Minneapolis, even into these areas. I mean, it's all rain now at this point in northern Iowa. And if you could stay snow for a significant amount of time in northern Wisconsin, I think northern Wisconsin and kind of these areas right here in central Minnesota could get the most snow. But this low pressure eventually moves in, switches all you guys to rain in Wisconsin, keeps you guys snow, it looks like, for western and even central sections of Minnesota. And eventually, you could switch back to like some sort of snow, even in Minneapolis as you're getting into Tuesday afternoon. But this looks like a big rain bomb for most of Michigan and eastern Wisconsin. So kind of a broad look at how much snow we could get in this region, right? If you just don't really want to stick around for the close-in look that shows all the town names and town cities. And then we move into, let's go to the upper Midwest. And this isn't the entire duration of the storm. This goes out Tuesday morning, still snowing in certain areas. But guys, I mean, they're already calling for, 6 to 10 inches of snow in Minneapolis, it looks like, and over, I would say 10 to 12 inches of snow in northern Wisconsin and these areas right here. But let's just jump right to the part that everybody wants to see. Here's a big look at Montana, Helena, 4 to 5 inches of snow, Great Falls, same thing, about 5 inches. Jordan, I know this is a little bit small on your screen. Hopefully you can see it well. 8 inches of snow, Miles City, 7 inches of snow. Baker, 9. Glasgow, 5 to 6. So not a substantial winter storm. But I think this will be a heavier hitter for the eastern half of Montana. Almost said Yontana. Of Montana than I would say the western half of Montana. So we go over and look at North Dakota. I think southern North Dakota will get hit the hardest. 6 to 12 inches of snow as of right now being forecast in Bismarck. Now, some of this information will change by the time we get into tonight, so make sure you stay tuned for tonight's video. Minot, 3 to 7, not the heaviest snow with this. Fargo, 9 to 17. Lisbon, 10 to 18. Jamestown, 6 to 13. Carrington, 5 to 11. Ashley, 7 to 14. Dickinson, 8 to 13. Go down to South Dakota. All right, this is where I think some of the hardest hit areas will be. Siston, I think is how you pronounce it, 16 to 23 inches of snow. Watertown, 12 to 18. Brookings, 10 to 17. Now, this is when we get involved in the kind of that warm sector where, you'll get into that warm nose. Sioux Falls going for 4 to 8, but I could see you getting less than that. It just depends on how long you stay snow. Pierre, 7 to 16 inches. Rapid City, 4 to 9. Winter, 8 to 17. Mitchell, 6 to 12. You move into, where is this? This is, I need to know my states here. Nebraska. Valentine, 6 to 13. Mullen, 4 to 11. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I'm going to try. Agalala, you could get anywhere from a trace to 7 inches of snow. I mean, that's very helpful. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one down here once you get into Nebraska. Alliance, 1 to 6. North Platte, anywhere from 2 to 7 inches of snow. But Omaha, the eastern sections of Nebraska, not calling for much. But I will say there's probably going to be a little bit of an icing concern in this area. Well, never mind. Not really calling for much icing in this. It's kind of surprising. It looked like there could be a little streak of ice in here. So that proved me wrong. But Minnesota, Twin Cities, Minneapolis region, going for now 7 to 11 inches of snow. And I know, maybe a day or so ago it was calling for a little bit more. But it looks like the totals have kind of went down a little bit with this. But we'll see if that increases again. St. Cloud, 10 to 15 inches. Alexandria, 11 to 16. You can see the epicenter of this is definitely going to be in the heart of Minnesota. Duluth, 11 to 16. And then up here in sections of northeast of Minnesota. This is where we had the highest confidence. We're an all-out blizzard. International Falls, 4 to 8. Rochester, 4 to 7. You're definitely going to switch to rain down here. And you definitely could get some ice. And let's take a look at some of that ice forecast down here. Man, they don't have any upgrade icing forecast. I really do think there will be a potential for some ice in southern Minnesota. But National Weather Service not really buying that much. Iowa, it's a tough one. I think these northern sections of Iowa, if you're going to get any snow, it's going to be, you are, but whatever snow you get in the beginning of this storm tomorrow is pretty much what you're going to get. I really do think so. Widespread in the northern counties of Iowa, 1 to 4 inches of snow is pretty much a good bet. I have a little smaller area for this. This is for the UP of Michigan. Copper Harbor, 6 to 10 inches of snow. Republic, 5 to 8. Marquette, 4 to 6. Not that much snow for the eastern UP, but we'll see what happens. Rhinelander, 6 to 9. Phillips, 7 to 11. Ironwood, 6 to 9 inches of snow. So just the general theme here, the more you work in northern Iowa, points west, the more snow. Okay, so winds with this. This is why, there's a potential for a blizzard warning in Nebraska, maybe even areas of South Dakota. Not so much for this area of Minnesota. And you see the enhanced winds off Lake Superior here in northeast Minnesota. This is why you're going to have a blizzard warning. But, is there going to be any blizzard warnings in maybe northern Nebraska? I think if anybody's going to get a blizzard warning, it's northern Nebraska for sure, outside of what's already issued right now. But you also got to watch this. Low pressure ejecting off to the north, dry air kind of undercutting it. 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts are possible in western Texas and then especially southeastern New Mexico. Very strong winds moving in tonight, really into tomorrow. So there's a severe weather risk for tomorrow also, guys. We've been talking about this for a while now. Slight risk I don't think will increase as of now. We'll see. Level 2 out of 5 risk in Kansas and northern Oklahoma. Okay, 5% risk of a tornado, including Wichita, including the Wichita region, all the way into northern sections of Oklahoma. 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Winds don't look to be a huge deal tomorrow, but I could see definitely a hail threat tomorrow. There's a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in this yellow area. And just a quick look at the radar out of this region for tomorrow. We'll start off tomorrow morning. Rain will move out of Kansas and Oklahoma. And then we'll open up an opportunity. I know it's pretty hard to see, but there is some storms right here in Kansas. And we'll just take a closer look here. Kansas, for example, some storms firing up right here in the heart of the state. And honestly, it doesn't show much initiation of storms in Oklahoma. So I do think there'll be 1 to 3 big-time storms in central Kansas tomorrow, maybe just 1 to 2, that will have an opportunity to produce a tornado right along this dry line. I think there'll be an area of dry air that kind of disrupts the dry line in Oklahoma and areas of Texas tomorrow. So I think the highest threat of severe weather is right here in central Kansas. We'll have a few strong to severe storms that will fire up in this region for sure. So, and they could eventually, trail off into northeast Kansas, and sets the stage for severe weather for tomorrow also. I'm sorry, for Monday. And this is for Monday. There's a little isolated area, kind of a cold core setup. We'll speak more on that here in the coming videos in Iowa for Monday. But I think this will be the more significant threat. The entire state of Louisiana under a slight risk, good chunk of Mississippi and southern Arkansas and eastern Texas. We'll talk more on this. As of now, we just know there's a 15% risk of severe weather. So we'll tweak this as we move further in time. Guys, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. Have a safe day today. God bless all y'all. And I'll probably talk to y'all this evening.